I think a lot of crazy dating stories has prepared me. I feel like I'm an expert at red flags after my dating life. But I think that the core of him that I got to see was a very sweet, loving, kind, like his heart, where it was a good guy. When you choose to own the truth, you don't have to fear the truth coming out. And I think that was our story.
They found each other in Love is Blind Sweden and have already been through a lot during their first year of marriage. 35-year-old Amanda Rincon Jonegård shares her thoughts on the upcoming birth of her and Sergios' little boy and how they have prepared Sergios' flat for baby life. Why was she an expert on red flags before Love is Blind? What about the baby that Sergio is already the father to? What is Amanda's view on their very different personalities? You are about to hear all of this and more in this first English episode of the Mammaintervjun with me, Lisa Ness. So let's switch to English, shall we?
Yeah.
You just said that we haven't prepared any questions. Would you have preferred to get some questions in advance?
Sometimes I usually ask, actually, but I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you must have done a few interviews by now.
And a lot of the questions are quite similar times. So then I don't think anyone has had too much of a crazy question yet. So
okay.
so it's been peaceful.
Yeah. So this is the first interview I'm doing in English. And I thought it could make sense because I guess you have a few followers from different countries after you participated in Love is Blind Sweden.
It's almost half, I think.
Yeah?
I think about half of the followers are international. But a lot of them speak Portuguese from Brazil.
Yeah.
So they need the translation, like to click to translate. It seems like they're not that great in
on
English.
Instagram. Uh-huh.
But a lot of them, I mean, a lot of US and Canada as well.
Bem-vindos to all the Portuguese or Brazilian maybe listeners, and welcome to everybody else. It's funny because I live in Portugal, and I speak English with my partner Alex, and I speak always Swedish with my kids. So English is obviously my second language. Did you live in US for a while?
Yeah, I lived twice. So I learned English in the US when I was 9. I moved there. I knew like 10 words.
Yeah.
And I was put into an American class. But they have a lot of Spanish-speaking students. So I went with like the support of the Spanish teachers. But nobody knew Swedish. So it was like a point teaching system.
Yeah.
Point to the letter A and make me repeat it. And then, so I learned it without translation, basically. But I think it's been to my benefit because I can hear grammatically correct, but I can't think like what's correct in the same way. But then I lived there.
In English or Spanish? Yeah.
No, in English, yeah.
Did you learn Spanish also?
No, I didn't. I've studied it a little bit, but I need to refresh.
Okay.
Now for the baby too. Because Sergio speaks fluent, so.
Will he speak Spanish to the baby?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
At least his family will. So we will raise it bilingual. Yeah.
Exciting. Where did you live in US at that time?
Florida. I lived in 3 different cities in Florida.
So you moved, the whole family moved, or? Yeah?
Yeah. It was for my dad's job. He was like transferred there. And then we were there 3 years and then moved back to Sweden. And then I moved back. I always kept saying like, I'm coming back one day. This is like my part home. And then I went back for college. I thought like 1 semester, but then I was like, no, I'll do my A degree, so like 2 years, and then I was like, I'm gonna do my bachelor's, and then it kept extending, so I was there 7 years.
Oh wow!
But so total, I've lived there 10 years.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of time. So where was college?
It was in Florida as well. So I lived in a little city called Ocala, which is like it was nominated like a all-time American city. Very. If you've seen Gilmore Girls, it looks like the city.
Okay.
Very little city, town, and 1 movie theater, and there's not much to do.
Yeah.
So all you did was college there.
Okay.
And then I moved to Tampa, which is a bigger city.
Uh-huh.
A lot of sports and you have the beaches and everything. So it's like a little dream city. It's been growing now. It's become super expensive there.
Yeah.
And then I lived in St. Pete, which is just south of Tampa. So sometimes people think I lived in Russia, but there's a St. Petersburg in Florida too.
Yeah.
I had an interview once where they're like, tell us about your time in Russia. I was like, I was never in Russia. What are you talking about?
I guess there would have been two quite different experiences.
Yeah.
Have you done a lot of interviews for international media?
No, a Norwegian one.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't. I don't think so, no.
Okay. So I'm thinking we're of course going to talk about a little bit Love is Blind and the time after, but I would also know more about the pregnancy and your thoughts on birth.
Mm.
As we are sitting here, you have your due date in like a few days only. And your birthday.
Yeah.
And your first year anniversary wedding.
back to back to back.
It's like all happening at the same time.
Days. Yeah, my mom was asking, she's like, what do you want for your birthday? And I was like, oh, I forgot my own birthday in the middle of this. Yeah, it's crazy that it timed. First, I was expected on my birthday, but then they changed 2 days earlier.
Mm.
So I was like, oh no, we're not sharing birthday.
No. So how are you doing?
It's going well. It's been, a lot of people said I have had a lot of energy, and I think up until like week 34, things were really good. Like I was still feeling the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then like week 35, like the swelling came and, and now you feel like how heavy it is on the knees when I stand up and stuff.
Yeah.
But very easy pregnancy, I think. I haven't had a lot of pain. When I was working in the office and sitting down for long hours, I would get back pain towards the end. But I think in general, this has been one of the easier pregnancies. So that's
nice.
Yeah, very blessed.
Yeah.
I call this a mild pregnancy.
Yeah.
And it's lucky.
And you are expecting a boy?
Yep.
And you have decided on a name?
We have.
Are you going to share it with me?
No.
No.
We have to see him first.
Yeah.
But we actually thought from the beginning, when I read like old midwife tales, like if you have this, it's a boy, or if you have this, it's a girl. I was like, oh, it's 100% a boy. Like all of those I thought was so much a boy.
So what was that? What were the signs?
It was that you like salty foods more than sweets. Mm-hmm. And I had like specifically wanted like olives and chips and stuff, like very salty things. And then if you sleep on your left side, I think it was one of those. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing that. And then
but they also say that you should sleep on your left side.
Yeah, it has to do with the blood flow, my mom said. It helps the baby get more oxygen or something. Yeah. And then I had, if from also friends, like the ones that threw up a lot, they carried girls, and the ones that didn't carried boys.
Okay.
So I was like, I think it's a boy.
Yeah.
And then, and then I had a list of names that I collected since actually when I was in 4th grade. So I started a list on a piece of paper, and then I transferred it to like my notes on my phone. So I've had an ongoing list for many years. Just whenever I hear a nice name, I'll add it to the list.
Yeah.
So I read the list for Sergio, and one of the names, he was like, oh, that's a cool name. I was like, yeah. And then we just kept calling it the name.
Yeah.
And that it was a boy. And then we didn't even know. But then I've always said I wanted a boy first. So, but even the day we were checking, I was like, what if it is a girl? Then everything would change now because we've been saying boy for so long.
Yeah.
We'll see when we see the baby, we'll see if the name works. But I think so.
Why did you want to have a boy first?
It's a good question. I have 3 older sisters and one younger brother. And I just always thought, like, I wonder what it's like if the firstborn is a male. Like, it sets maybe a different tone to the family. Not that my sisters did anything wrong, but I just always thought, like, oh, it would have been cool to have an older brother too.
Yeah.
So then I thought, well, a boy. And then if we have more kids, like, then maybe 2 girls is what I'm hoping for. But you can never pick. I think once that happens, then it doesn't even matter. But I would hope that you have a girl in the future as well.
But you would want to have several children?
Yeah, I want more than Sergio does. He's leaning towards 2.
Okay.
And I'm like 3 to 4.
Yeah.
But I'm
3 to
also
4.
a little older now, so I'm like, I don't know, 4 might be tough unless we're very tight ages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 3 will be nice if possible. Yeah.
So you're gonna give birth here in Stockholm in a hospital. Do you have any wishes or ideas about the birth, how you want it to be?
Well, yeah, we actually last week did like a virtual reality video of a birth.
Oh, wow.
So I'd seen a lot of like YouTube videos of like influencers who gave birth, and I had a picture, and then I saw this one. So it was filmed from the woman's angle, so you like can look up and you see the man and you see the monitors. And I was like, wow, it was a little different than I'd seen when you just see one big room and it's like couches and stuff. And I was like a little bit shocked at how more medical it looked than I had imagined, I think. But I think the goal is to have a very like peaceful, and we bought little lighting that we can bring in and put around to make it like, you know, turn the lights down and make it a peaceful vibe. And I reflected a lot on like when we discussed, should we have music? Should it be like energized or peaceful? Or do you want a lot of motivational words, or do you want silence? Like, and it's so hard to know. But I think in order to like really go into your own thoughts, I want it more peaceful than it doesn't have to be, you know, push, like that. And I think my motivation is I wrote my like the letter this week that I will bring to the hospital. So I really was thinking about it, and I'm like, my motivation is so much more like that I will do this rather than soon the baby's here. Like that doesn't motivate me as much.
Okay.
Like, oh, just keep pushing, you know, soon the baby arrives.
Yeah.
It's more like your body's doing the right thing, like really go into your own mind. And I was listening to it was called like a hypnobirth. It's not a podcast. It was like, I don't know, a website or something. But I was listening to it, and they were saying that you can give birth even when you're in a coma. So the body does the work still if you're not there mentally. And that was like a good motivation, I think, to have like the body will do the work. I just have to go along with it, more or less. So trying to really get into that state of mind, because I think it's easy to, once like I saw that video and I was like, oh my gosh, the pushing and the screaming, and she took epidural in the video and I was like, I'm not gonna do the epidural, and she's still screaming. So I'm like, how much is the pain? I don't know. So that's the fear, I think.
So you wanna skip epidural?
Yeah. My sisters all did. And they were like, have you seen how long the needle is? And I was like, looking at it, I was like, yeah, I don't want that. They're like, no, it looks horrible. So I don't know. I feel like now I'm on board with no needle. But I want the, what do you call it? Lustgas, the oxygen.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is in English. It's something
called laughing gas or something?
Yeah, maybe. It's like something that is used, I don't know if I can say a lot, but it's definitely used in Swedish in the hospitals. When women give birth, it's like very common, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of people would at least try it.
Yeah.
But like I gave birth in Portugal and it doesn't exist there. So I'm not sure it's so common in other countries.
Maybe.
Like here.
Yeah. I think it just makes you a little bit almost high or something. Yeah. You drift away for a few seconds and then you come back, and then... So it helps with the pain.
I think it seems fun. Like I would definitely have tried it if I would have
everyone says it's
option.
the best. So they're like, that was the best part of the birth. But I think it can make you nauseous a little bit too. You have to control how you use it.
I've heard stories of women, you know, they don't want to let go of this mask that they're breathing in.
But that's all I'm thinking that I will. And then I'll take like a bath and stuff too. But it's impossible to know how the pain is before the pain starts. And just like one day when I had a little bit of like, I think like Braxton Hicks, or they call it, like it's practicing a little bit. I was like, oh, this is like period pain, but a little bit worse. And I was like, oh no, like this is probably not even 1% of what it's going to feel like. But you know, you've gone through it. Yep.
I have two very different experiences.
Okay, yeah.
One in private hospital that ended in cesarean.
Okay.
And one home birth.
Okay. Oh, is that common in Portugal?
It's not so common, no.
No.
But after the first one, I felt like all went well, but it didn't go the way I would have wished for. And I was, I was suspecting that if I would come into hospital in Portugal with a previous cesarean, they would just want to cut me open again and not let me try for a vaginal birth. So I decided to do it at home, which I'm very happy for it. It was great.
Nice. And they had a midwife come then?
Yeah, I had a midwife and a doula.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So you will have the opportunity to have a bath, but could you give birth in water?
I think you have to like pre-plan that. It's not all hospitals, I think, allow it. Because this one that I'm going to has just a tiny bathtub. So I think you need the bigger ones when you do a water birth. And then, but I don't want to do a water birth.
No.
I don't know why. I think it's because everything comes out in the water.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mess.
Yeah, but it looks nice because it just like looks very smooth when you see videos. The baby just comes out and pulls up. We will see.
I love to have a bath during the labor, though. That was fantastic. I even fell asleep in the bath. It was so relaxing. Yeah. But then I had to go up again because the contractions were sort of stopping. I got too relaxed.
Oh, no.
I don't know. So, yeah, there was no water birth happening.
No.
You said when you arrived here that you said Sergio has a day off today. And you were going to prepare the bedroom. We have all seen this bedroom.
Yeah.
I loved your reaction when you came into Sergio's flat.
Yeah.
I was just the same. I was sitting and I was laughing.
It's a very different apartment, for sure.
Yeah. But how, I know you have, or you together maybe, you have put some love into it and made it your place, getting ready for the baby also. So do you want to tell us, how have you prepared Sergio's old flat?
Yeah, what you couldn't see on camera was when we first came in, the couch that was there, they didn't really film it, but I could see that it looked kind of like it was broken, like it was leaning weird. And he walks up and he just touched it and it fell apart.
Wait.
And this was from someone who had borrowed the place, so it wasn't. He only heard through text message that something maybe was broken.
Okay.
So that was like the first thing that happened, and that's when my laughing started.
Why did they not?
I don't know if the camera wasn't on or if they were being nice to us to not film it. But so the first thing that happened, I was like, I don't know what's going on with this couch, but it needs to go. So it was just a lot of dark colors too. He had like dark blue, dark brown, black, and white. So I was like, we need some light in here. So we bought a new couch was the first thing we did. And that one was broken 3 times when we ordered it. So
oh no.
I saw like a photo.
Keep following you, broken sofas.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw a photo the other day when we were sitting, like boxes everywhere because I was moving my stuff over. And then we were getting the couch and it was wrong. So we had to return it. And then we needed a box and it was a whole process. And we were like, it was such an uphill battle from like day one. Moving in, it was so quick and everything. But we kept like most of it, like his tables, his paintings on the walls and stuff like that. But then a new couch, and he had like an old DJ like table as well. I was like, are we going to use this? Or so it's in the attic now. But yeah, we had a lot of things had to go. And then my stuff came in. But I didn't move my furniture. So I had like one bookshelf or something. And then added some plants for sure.
Yeah.
That does a lot. So now the rest of the place, we had to buy new closets because he had maybe 1 meter wide that I could have. And I had a walk-in closet and I work for a fashion company. So I have a lot of clothes.
Do you work for H&M?
Yeah.
Sorry, just a little. What do you do?
I work in finance and accounting department.
Okay.
So I just, during the last couple of months, switched role. But I've been in accounting for maybe 5 years.
Okay.
And now switched to more finance.
Okay.
So I don't really work with the clothes, but we have access to buy a lot of clothes. So
okay.
I have a lot of things at
1
home.
meter was not enough.
No, so we bought a whole wall of closets, I think. So that was the first thing we had to do. And then now the loft, which on the camera it looks kind of small, but it's actually quite a big room because our bed is like over 2 meters wide, and then there's extra space. So it is actually a pretty decent size. But it's the annoying part is that the ceiling is low.
Yeah.
Like you saw me hit my head. So now I'm like, how do I walk with the baby? And like,
so what's the plan for the baby? Where is it going to sleep?
We will try things out, I think is the plan.
Yeah.
We have like a crib on wheels. You can move it. So I think we will have that in the living room, actually. And then I might be sleeping a little bit on the couch.
Yeah.
But then we will set up a second station in the bedroom. So we have like diapers and everything there too. And then maybe sleep in there at night, like with a baby between us or something. I think we have to test because every baby's different. So
yeah.
But that's the plan. My mom said yesterday, she's like, I'm praying for another apartment. How are you guys going to manage this? I'm like, no, you're going to appreciate everything that comes after this apartment. It's not like the loft is really nice and cozy, but it is the stairs through the kitchen to the loft that is. That's my least favorite part, especially now pregnant when you walk up. It's like harder and harder to lift the knee. But it's been fine. We have like a great location. We try to look at the positives. So, and the living room is actually quite big.
How many square meters is the home place?
It's without the loft. It's 51.
Yeah,
I think. So I don't know how big the loft is because they don't count those in.
No. Yeah.
But it's an okay size.
Yeah.
It's a small kitchen too, and everything is very low because it's like it's from the 30s, the building, but I think from the 50s when they built, you lean down a lot to do the dishes. So we don't have like dishwasher or a laundry machine in the apartment. So those are little extra challenges. But so we're redoing the loft then. So he has actually painted the walls, and the ceiling is the same color. It's all white.
Yeah.
But he just repainted it white, and you can tell it was a big difference, white and white. So it's super fresh now. And then we're changing the carpet because I don't know how old that is, but he's lived there for 9 years and it was there before. It's a car shop under, or not a shop, but like repair shop. So that's why it is a loft. So even the kitchen is like one step up. So it's built. Someone DM'd me and said, I lived in like the building next to it because it also has like a car shop. Yeah. So underground. You don't hear anything from it, which is good. But she's like, hey, this is what our bedroom looked like. And she sent like a photo. She's like, I know exactly what you guys are going through.
Yeah. Well, I think you are going to be totally fine when you have a baby. You don't need much for a baby.
Yeah.
It's going to be more difficult once the baby wants to starts moving a bit more and wants to climb up the stairs. That's a phase that's not much fun.
No.
You're just running after.
No. So I think that might be like in the fall. It starts crawling and stuff when it's 6 months or something. So that's when I've said we need to, because my apartment has been leased out. So then it's not been a good time to sell it either. So I will have to see if we sell or try to buy, or because this is a rental, you can switch it up also.
Okay.
But you need to find someone that wants to swap.
Yeah.
So it's not so easy in Stockholm to find a new place.
No.
But I'm like, we'll make it work. I've had friends who also live small, and they're like, you just find systems to organize better. And already now I feel like I'm willing to give up things for the sake of more peace and things for the baby. And I'm like, that feels part of like motherhood, when you're like, you know what? I give up all this clothes so the baby can have a space for the clothes instead.
Yeah. It will work out.
Yeah.
Fine. So you have been through your first year of marriage. How has this first time been after the cameras shut off?
Everything has been weird. Or it's been, it's such a weird thing to do, a TV show, and then you go in single and you come out married, and then you just start moving. It's so hard for the brain to understand what happened. And I was very prepared in advance. Like I really thought it through. Like if this goes well, I'm married in April. And then my summer is like with a husband. Like it's all, I was really thinking like that. But then I also thought, what if this doesn't go well and I start from zero after this? I'll be maybe depressed about it, because I put everything into it.
How, you mean?
I don't know. I just went like all in. I had like my Spotify list of wedding songs. I had like looked up all wedding pictures, and like I prepared everything because we didn't have our phones during the show or a part of it. So I had pre-planned like almost what do I want on my wedding and stuff. So if it goes well, I'm prepared because I will have such short time. And then I just went in my mindset, like I was like, what is everything I have to work through with myself prior to this? Really like journaling and therapy and talk to my friends and everything. So I would feel this is it. Like I'm going in and we will see. And also, question like, what do you really want? What are you looking for? Like knowing that before you're sitting there. So I think I was maybe one of the most prepared people there.
Yeah, sounds like it. What about Sergio? Do you know if he prepared anything like that?
No, and he was casted. So I applied and he was casted.
Okay.
Majority of the guys were actually casted. But he was more like, oh, okay, this sounds fun. Like maybe I'll leave with a girlfriend or something. He did not. I don't know why he wouldn't think it could. I think he just thought like this would just be a fun thing I'm doing in life. And I was really not thinking the same. I was like, I'm not doing this for like being fun to be on TV. This is an opportunity to meet somebody through a very different concept. So yeah, we were really different places. And I think that's what, when people watch the show, they see that I'm like very calm and peaceful and I was so aware of also like my boundaries and what I would accept and not. So I wouldn't end up with what I've dated before or stuff.
Okay.
And I think he just showed up and like was having a good time, and then he starts to fall in love, and then he's panicking.
Yeah.
And he's coming up with all these excuses to pull back and the fear, and like so he's going through a very different battle than I did, which is exactly what people got to follow. To see his fear of rejection was, I think, what he was really going through a lot. And I was, the most used word people said was like, you have so much patience.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, but this is not even close to things I've gone through before. Like this, I think a lot of crazy dating stories has prepared me to be more, I don't know. I think I've dated a lot of people that have something going on, and you learn to understand that like what you see at the surface is not what really goes on in the heart, or what's the trauma, or what's the situations behind it. So I've learned not to just judge that. Like when he was freaking out, I didn't know at the time of filming about the bullying reaction. I knew about that he had gotten cold feet.
Shall we just explain that quickly?
Yeah.
So there was an episode where you open your heart for him. You're still sitting in the pods with a wall in between you. And, or I mean, you could also tell this. I don't have to.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell it?
I think I was just sharing that. And I made so much peace with it. So I wasn't nervous sharing it. But I was like, oh yeah, I was like bullied when I was younger. I have scoliosis. And then he like went with that. And a lot of people think it had to do with what I looked like, that's what he was freaking out over. But he went back and he was anxious and talking to the guys. He wasn't worried about what I looked like, but he was more like, oh, she was bullied, maybe she's not cool and I'm cool. Like he was more that what he was battling. And he wanted like the best of the best. And then he's like, what's this girl? Like, so I shared something vulnerable, and then he went back and started saying that he was aware that you should not think like this. But he's like, what do I do? I'm still thinking it. So he was opening up to the guys, and people had different reactions. Some said, you can't say that out loud.
Yeah.
He's like, but I understand that it's wrong. But what do I do? I'm freaking out. Like, maybe I don't want to be with this girl. They're like, she's like ready to get married to you, so you have to figure it out. And I didn't know about that, like the bullying part. He told me when we were in the apartments a few weeks later, and he was so heartbroken. Like, he came home and he was crying and he's like, don't even give me a hug. I don't deserve it. Like, I've said some very horrible things about you. And he was devastated about it. I was like, you know, you have no idea, because when you're filming, you don't see anything going on, whether how people react or what they have said.
Yeah, of course.
It's a weird place. But during the pods that we were sitting in, he did share that he had gotten cold feet and kind of freaked out and was almost wanting to leave one day. And that's when I was like, oh, this is a scary behavior. Like, what's going on? Because I didn't think we had anything, like, we had a good connection. So I was like, what's he panicking about? And it was actually first I'd shared what type of music I liked. And he had panicked about it. So
really? What kind of music do you like?
Well, that year prior, I listened a lot to like Afrobeat. And I was saying like, oh, I listen. He's like, give me a name. And I was like, Burna Boy. And he's like, Burna Boy? He had not heard of him. And so he had asked the guys and they're like, oh yeah, it's like cool guy. Like, and then he had somehow like this girl, like, I don't know, she listens to Afrobeat. Like, he didn't get the picture adding up with me. I don't know. I had only said that so lightly. And then he was like freaking out over that. And they're like, you're ridiculous. Like, he told me, the guys were like, you're just freaking out over anything. Like, you can pick any topic in the world and you're trying to find an excuse to not go through because you're actually falling in love. And I think he realized that. And I think something like a music taste, like a song, like, it's not even like I've been to a concert or anything. So I think his reaction was really, you could tell that it's not about the music issue. It's more about what he's giving himself into and maybe been hurt from love. And then the fear of that again.
Have you been hurt from love?
Yeah, many times. I think my first relationship was in every way the worst, painful.
Do you want to share what it was then?
Yeah. I think, like, I knew after or when we broke up, I knew that he had cheated and stuff. But I think the worst for me through everything was that he was continuously lying. And I would have a very strong feeling about things, and it wouldn't have to be a big deal, but it would be something that I'm like, this story doesn't add up, and I would question it. And he would always tell me that, like, you were so insecure, you're so, like, he always put it back on me, and I would literally sit there and like, I'm going crazy because I have a feeling about stuff, but he's telling me like, you're just making up a story in your head and this and that. So I think like with the years, the worst part ever, it's never been the cheating. It was always the lies, because that's really manipulating someone else to be in a relationship. And that, I've said it when I go on dates, I'm like, it's the worst. If you can't be honest, if you don't know yourself enough to be honest, then if you have to cover up, because he would say stuff like, now I'm a good guy. And I was like, what do you mean now? Oh, no, we don't need to get into the details, but I thought about a lot of stuff and now I'm a good guy. And I was like extremely honest and open. And so I think at that time I was a very like fragile person, I think. And I didn't have neither like the boundaries or I think I had more like the kindness, and I felt bad. And I also went into that relationship with the wrong attitude that I was going to fix him. Because I was like, I come from this type of life and you come from this. And he did have a very broken background. And I was like, well, you know, he can come into my world and it will be all good.
Yeah.
And that I was like, after that, I'm like, nope, you never fix anyone. If you go into the expectation that they would change, it's not your job. And it's too much of a job to do as well. So I think in one way, it was a good relationship that taught me extremely a lot about people and myself. But then I think I still had that tendency to date people that needed the comfort that I was bringing to the relationships. And that's a very dangerous personality trait to have.
Is that different with Sergio?
Well, in the very beginning when we were dating, I was afraid that that would be the case again. Because I feel like I'd practiced everything. And I remember so well, one friend of mine told me maybe 2 years earlier, 1 year earlier, I'd started dating someone. And there were a few things that were like not good. And I was like lightly brushing through, like, this and this is an issue. And she said, oh, I really wish you could date somebody where you don't have to fight so much all the time. Or feel like you help them. When you go into a relationship where they will just be a put together human being that can be there for you too. And that sentence stuck with me so
well
much.
Said.
Yeah. To go into, and it was unfamiliar for me, which it shouldn't probably be. To think that I should date someone where I don't have a mission. Or that I could be loved the way I've loved. I think that year prior to Love is Blind was my most best self-love and confidence building year. Because I was dating someone for a while and I was like, no, this is not good. And then I pushed myself. I'm like, I'm not going to sit at home and cry. You're getting older, you're stressing, you're thinking about kids and this and that. And I was like, no, I'm going to continue to go on dates. And if I see any red flags, then just let it go. There's so many other people there. Don't start to accept a few things because it does add up usually.
So talking about red flags.
Yeah.
While this was broadcasted on Netflix, it's funny because people love to discuss this show, right?
Yeah.
It was just, people were so engaged, or really everybody having their own opinion and theory. But a lot of people said there were red flags with Sergio.
Exactly.
Did you see any red flags?
I think, I feel like I'm an expert at red flags after my dating life. But I think that the core of him that I got to see was a very sweet, loving, kind, his heart, where it was a good guy. And his reactions were from trauma or prior relationships, it's a behavior. It wasn't that he himself was evil, wanting to hurt me or do something. So I think for me, the way I saw it wasn't this is not a red flag. This is just an escape or fear. A red flag is when someone, for me, has more knowledge of actually that they are doing something, or that they're not able to deal with what the darkness is. And what wasn't filmed, or it was filmed, but it wasn't aired, was when we were getting to know each other in the pods, and I asked him I was we're very surface level. I had opened up maybe more, but I was saying from his end, it was very, I don't know, it was sort of a weird feeling when you sit in there, because you're talking constantly, but then you're what are we really talking about? I don't even know, and then we're going to get married. But then I said, I really need to see some sort of depth or some sort of more from you. It sounds fun and cool and all this, but I need to see something else. And we ended a date like that. And then he came back, and I was so nervous because the way he introduced it, he was like, okay, I made some thinking, here goes. And I was like, oh no, he's breaking. I was prepared, okay, we're ending something now. And then I don't think I had anyone else I was dating. So I was like, I guess I'm going home,
Yeah.
Your head starts spinning. But then what he did was he's like, here's 10 things that are negative about me, or...
Oh, wow, 10, that's a lot to share.
Yeah, and then 10 positive things.
Yeah.
So he just started reading point 1, point 2. And for me, I was like, oh, then he has the ability he's aware of himself. And the fact that someone can share that rather than hide that, and then you discover it a year later, that for me was, I'd rather have a guy who can say hey, I'm horrible at this, so you know, rather than me having to discover things. And I think that made me feel very comfortable. I don't think that's maybe for everyone's type of relationships, but what I dated, I felt comfortable knowing the things that maybe aren't great, but at least he told me.
So having been married to Sergio now for 1 year, do you agree on the 10 points, or?
I told him to keep the paper, but I think he threw it out.
Oh, no.
So I only remember a few. But no, I think it was easier than I expected, actually. I think a big part was that maybe he's very messy, or I'm so organized, maybe I'm not easy to live with either. But then it was never that much of an issue. And I think also maybe I'm a little bit more bossy in that area.
Okay.
And he's a little bit more flexible in that area.
Yeah.
And if we were very different, like if he really had an opinion about how everything had to be, maybe it would be harder. But I think I get to decide a little bit, okay, we put this here. And then for him, it's actually helpful to have a lot of structure at home and stuff too. So I think that was my fear prior. Like, how are we going to live together? We're so different on so many levels, but we're very similar with our values. And that's, I think, what made it work for us. But so a year later, it's been, I don't know, like the summer was fun and it was a very different, we didn't have many months until we were pregnant.
No,
and then I was
out in
August,
yeah.
So it was like 4 months later, yeah.
So what are his best sides?
He's very good at like being able to like let things go and like can switch. Even from if you have a disagreement or something, he can immediately be like, okay, let's watch a movie and like move on. And I can be like, no, I need like 3 days to process and be upset. And he can do something goofy and I start laughing and then I'm kind of over it too. So I think that he can switch my bad sides to good sides. So I think that's bringing out the best in me in that way. And he has a lot of energy and I think now when we also have so much this year and we're both tired and we're both pushing through, I can tell that he's putting like the baby in me first and himself third, I guess you will say, and really like aligning with his priorities. And I think he had a longer road ahead of him from the show than I did because I was so prepared. Like I'll be married and then moving out and stuff. And he came from Barcelona to Stockholm. Like when we entered that apartment to film, he had not been there yet.
No.
So it really was how it exactly happened. But I think his like energy, that he's different from me, that's what like brings out the best in each of us. And he makes me laugh every day. I think that's, prior to the show, that was one of the things that I was really reflecting on, even with past relationships or dating. I was like, some people have been more similar to me and some people have been very different from me. But the different relationships have sometimes been more fun. Like you will laugh at things because you're colliding at things a little bit more. I was like, well, what would I rather have? Someone who's very similar to me. And maybe we don't laugh every day, or we sit and talk finances, or I don't know. We do a budget, and that's how I saw it in my head.
That's how it would have been if you would have ended up with
Oscar.
Oscar, yeah.
We would be both doing our Excel files. Yeah. It really was what I was thinking when I was sitting there dating, and you go into a room and all you have is a voice you hear. And the energy that person gives. I was like, if you go into a room and you're just laughing, you're happy, you just want to go into that room again. Or if you go into a room where you're discussing things, you're talking about it, it can be super interesting. Then I'm like, but what is my whole life? And I also felt that if I meet someone who likes things that I like, for example, like the Excel and stuff, then I won't be the greatest at that. Then that person I will maybe be discouraged if that person is even better than me at that. And I will stop doing that. And that's a big part of who I am. So I think that's where I like that we're so different.
Yeah.
But I do think the key to marriage is that the values are similar. Because I do think that's why it works. But also why I was very like well thought through to bring up like my faith and everything. Because I was like, if we're colliding, even though we can proceed for years, happiness, but there will come a day where we're like, oh wait, you think like this and I think like this. And now with a baby, we discussed it as well. Like, okay, we do still have some differences, but like it could be a bigger issue, I think, if you don't bring it up prior.
How has it been merging your lives together? Like your faith is a big part of your life and important to you. How is Sergio doing on that area?
Yeah. I mean, we're different. Like how we practice is different too, and what type of church we like is different. I like when there's a lot of music in a church, and he's more like, oh, I like this peacefulness and more what they're preaching that day. But that's with everyone too. Like there's so many churches, like people have preferences. And I think maybe we won't have like one church that we go to together.
Is he going to church sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He kept saying, he's like, people question if I'm like hobby Catholic or something. They were writing about. He's like, I've gone to church more times than you since we got married. But they're still questioning me, like, on that side. So I think people are differently religious, but he definitely has like gone. Now we have been like in the last couple of months super busy, but he's been going more than I did. And I've been also like jumping churches a little bit, going here and there instead of having like one. But I think, I mean, people are religious in different ways. Some just have a tradition, or some have more of a living faith. And it's so crazy that people judge that too, because nobody knows that from a person. And he's very used to that religion is super private. Like you just share it with your family maybe. And I'm grown up like Pentecostal. Like it's very, especially living in the US and coming back to Sweden as a kid, I was very outspoken. I was like, oh no, like you can talk about this. Like I was very unlimited and not afraid to talk about it. And that's been one of the biggest feedbacks from the show that I got like in my DMs, that people were like, oh wow, like you shared your faith. And I really did not go in there to be in any way like, oh, I'm gonna like try to preach a little bit or do nothing like that. I went just to bring up like, oh, I'm Christian, like what do you stand? Because I asked every single guy on every date, not on every date, but on the first like dates, just to see like, are you religious or not? Where do you stand if I am and not? For me, it was natural, but you realize it's so uncommon in Swedish culture to talk about it. And I didn't think that until I realized how many people wrote me, like both people that grew up in church but left church with the years, and then people, some had never had any faith. And like one person reached out and said, can you teach me how to pray? Like, I don't know, do I need to like close my hands? And I was like, oh, we're really starting from like zero. I was like, oh, I'm guiding in this area now, but and I really like didn't go into it to think that would be any sort of outcome.
No,
I really could not even imagine. I would just sat there like, oh, I'm a Christian girl, blah blah blah.
Would you consider going in your father's footsteps there
to preach? No, I think I'm not. Because he studied theology like 3 years, like a bachelor's degree, and I would not want to.
No.
I did go to Bible school after high school graduation. So 1 year I did Bible school. But no, I don't think so. I think a little bit of my takeaway from, especially after like moving away from home and you're very involved in church and your friends are in church and everything was so much church for me, that I felt that it was more dividing society rather than feeling like I felt different, like I was in a bubble from society. So I think with the years and moving to the US myself, living my life, and now I view more things less judgmental, less needing to have an answer. Because when you're in church and you discuss things, you need to have the answers a lot of the times. And I don't think we will ever know all the answers. And I'm okay with that. But I didn't used to speak like that at all. So I think I've changed with the years. But I think if I were to be a pastor, then you do need to like really go to the root of everything. And yeah, no, I don't think that's a path.
You have your own path.
Yeah.
So there's one more thing I'm interested in, and maybe the listeners as well. I think it was 2 months before you found out that you were pregnant that you also found out that Sergio is actually the father of a child that had been born in Sweden. Is that child part of your life today?
I haven't met it yet, but that has only been to coordinate. It was late last year that the final papers were like, it usually shouldn't be that long a process. I think it's like, they told us like, oh, it's 1 month, you fill in, you do the paternity test. But then there were vacations, and then there was a missing signature, and then I think he met the child when it was maybe 9 months or something like that. So it was a lot later. And then to land in the emotion, it's so weird. Because also when the show was airing, they were saying like, oh, it's going to be born in 3 months and stuff. And a lot of people questioned like, why did you just call everybody you had dated or like this and in Barcelona, like just figured it out? And, but the show also questioned like, oh, the baby was 3 years old, or then it was 7 years old. And it was the questions that came towards us didn't sound like it was something that was about to be born. Like looking back, it was born right around that week we filmed that, when it said it was still 3 months left. So he was still like kind of trying to figure it out and stuff. And then he called his friends too and like, do you guys think like I have a baby on the way? Like, and everyone was like, no. So we were really like, we had open conversations and thought there is no chance there is a baby. Plus when the show was changing the dates and the years and this, and it was like, oh, they're going to show up at your wedding. I think what someone had said was that they were going to crash our wedding. But then someone else said that that was the mother and the child is going to crash the wedding. But someone mixed up stories. So it was, for us, it was all so weird. So when after the wedding, we thought there was no story. And then we got the letter and then it was a long process. So I think the shock of the reality hit him late last year, like November, December, when it was finalized. And I was kind of like, I thought the whole time, it's probably true, because you wouldn't give up someone's name if you don't maybe think it's true. But that one is the father. So I was quite, from the summer, prepared. But so today, like he's met and his family has met the child, but it has to be scheduled. And it's a little tricky because people recognize us now.
Yeah.
So we're like, where do we meet? So that has been a little tricky too, because the mother doesn't want anything to be seen or identified. So then we have to figure out how do we meet and do that. And so we haven't actually like set up a future plan, but the baby's still quite small. So it's like they will meet, how they will plan it out, if it's once a month or I don't know. And then when the child is maybe more aware, we'll see how it changes through the years. Yeah. But it's a very complicated situation. So, I don't know if it's complicated, but it's very unique. And the fact that, I mean, she obviously had no idea that he would be in a show, and that rumor on her end, or that the rumor would come out into the TV show. So for her, it's probably also super strange, the whole thing. But yeah, but I haven't met her yet, but what we've said through, like I've said, I want to meet her and the baby, and she seems really positive and open towards it. So it seems like it's a good atmosphere, would you say? So I hope that. But it's a unique situation.
Yeah.
Having it also displayed on TV for the whole world to follow.
Definitely. So with your baby boy soon being born, how do you think Sergio will be as a father?
It will soften him a lot. Or I think he's already there. Like he's much more emotional of a person than I think people think. Yeah. And he's very, I don't know, I think my first impression was like, oh, this guy is very cool and this and that. And he is that as well. But he definitely has this, like, I can imagine him just looking at the baby's feet and being like, oh my gosh, it's like so tiny, like obsessing over these other things in a different way. And it will change everything. I think he will be maybe I will be the harder parent. I don't know. I think maybe in the earlier years, maybe I will be more harder. But I think later, maybe he's a little bit more, nope, no screen time or like this. And I'm like, good luck to us. Like everyone says that. But I think I have had more conversations with friends that have kids to realize that you can have a full plan prior to kids. And then when you have kids, it usually isn't as simple. So we will see. I think we will go through a lot of changes, both of us, on how we view life. And yeah, it will really change you, I think, to the better. We said that a lot about ourselves, is that I'm a planner and he's like living for the day. And that's been true since the day we like moved in together. I was like, okay, like, should we sit down and do a budget, or should we plan this out? And he's like, what? Like, just relax. He's like, let's go out and do this today. And I was like, but I have like in my mind a system for things so much more. And now that we're talking about the baby, he's like stressing about both if the baby is sick or if, like, where's the closest hospital? Like, how do we handle these crisis things? And like the first day we drop it off at daycare, like how his heart is going to break, or when it becomes a teenager. I'm like, oh no, I'm like more thinking like the first week, how am I going to handle my hormones? Like we have swapped. So I'm like in the moment a little bit more and he's seeing his life differently. But I think we were also different types of teenagers. Like I was a very simple teenager. I wasn't that complex. I think he had his struggles. And then he's seeing, having a boy specifically, that it can be, maybe he will see some parts of him in the baby.
I think that's pretty much it for today. Is there anything else you want to share?
No, I don't know. It's been a good year.
Yeah.
And that when you really believe in something that can happen, it really can happen. I think that's the takeaway from, like, my friends will say that were so involved prior to the show. They're like, oh, I have no doubt you were going to find a man. Like, you would work out. And very positive towards the whole experience. And then I think, and of course, and then that all happens. But then when you look back at it and through the process of also both like that the rumor or it was filmed and then that it happens, it's so weird to think like, oh, it's going to come out and you have to pick what you share to either you can say, oh, I won't comment anything ever, or just share the truth. And I think there's so many parts in this one single year where you really learn so much about where your values stand. And we still look at each other and we're like, how did we make it? Like, I actually said yesterday when we had gotten that letter in the mail about paternity test, that day we were so like, we just sat in silence for hours and he was so worried. Like, he was like immediately like, what are you feeling? I was like, well, what are you feeling? Like, went through so early in a relationship, because it was just a relationship too, and not just a marriage, because we only had like 6 weeks prior to the marriage that we knew each other. So it's like, it was so early in every way, and you go through such a, I don't know, crisis or trauma. It's just so overwhelming when you go through something that tests you how the relationship will be handled. And even though we were just sitting there, I feel like we were two kids just like, what are we going to do? Like, we just got married. Do we continue even? Like, we didn't question like to get a divorce or anything, but we were, for me, it was like, oh, I just, of all the crazy stuff I've dated, I've finally found a man and there's nothing else going on. And then there is, and now I'm also married. So that was so, I think when things become so big, you're overwhelmed. And I think we both handled it. We both that day sat staring and it was so crazy. But then I said, okay, you call one friend and I will pick one friend that I will need to talk to. And we need to just vent to someone now because this is such a weird situation. And we didn't even know if it was yet, of course, because the tests hadn't been done. But it was so how we handled the situation and how we, day by day, like, you know, you lose your appetite when you're going through stuff and you're like, don't know even what to say. You're just in the same room and like, don't have one single word. You try to be practical, like, should we watch a movie? Should we do, like, it's so crazy. But then you go through that and try to process what that means. And I think for me, speaking to friends a lot of the time helps because you realize you're in this crazy situation and then they share, like, that's not the end of the world. Like, that's not so big. A lot of the times when you go through a crisis or something that you zoom out and you see the bigger picture. And of course, then that summer, that was a big thing happening in our lives. But then we also were like, okay, then the show is going to come out and then we are pregnant also. So many parts in life all at the same time. And when the show come out, he wasn't too excited because he was like, I don't know how they have edited me. I have definitely said a lot of things. And the show comes out basically like that, how he was hoping it would not. And he had done a lot of good things that were all cut out. So it was, and then people were angry or upset or there was a lot of hate. Like, we handled everything. Like, January was the most crazy month. And then when the show was released each week, a little bit more people like soften up a little.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reunion was the craziest reunion probably they will ever have had. Both us being pregnant and then choosing to confirm the truth. Because that was really when we talked to others, just when you choose to own the truth, you don't have to fear the truth coming out. And I think that was our story. And it is still our story. And people will always judge. Like, no matter all the comments you read, sometimes I comment back, but sometimes I'm like, no, if they cannot understand that they have only seen a little, I think it's 0.5% of what we filmed, and that it's cut together. Some days are not the same days as it's being viewed, even. And if you don't know that, we probably have gotten to know each other more. And we have lived a year when this is coming, or not a full year.
Almost.
So you learn a lot about yourself, how you perceive people's judgment, and how easy it is to judge too, because I've seen the next season myself of the US version, and you sit there and you're like, how can they think or say this? And you're like, oh, it's so easy to... I don't even know if that's the same day as it's portrayed.
But have you watched the entire Swedish season?
Yeah. I only watched it once, actually. I thought I would be studying, like, myself from every centimeter.
How was it for you to see it?
It's interesting, because I thought a lot of the participants that we're following were perceived very much in one way. And that's not how I had perceived them. I wrote them afterwards. Like, I know I wrote to Katja, and I was like, just so you know, like, I did not see you that way that the show is showing you. And I think that was a good lesson to realize, like, most people are not portrayed. And I mean, they portray me maybe in a very nice way.
Yeah,
but I'm like,
maybe the nicest.
There are ugly sides to me too. So I got away the easiest maybe in that way. But I think everyone is angled in one way. I think the summary of everything is that if you choose to know yourself well enough and put yourself out there and you own your truth, even when I was talking about scoliosis, I'm like, that's not something really you want to share. I'm like, I'm at peace. That was so many years ago. And I had so many people message me in the first week. They're like, oh, my daughter has scoliosis and we're struggling at home and she's crying and going through this, like... So I started connecting over even that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was even going to be aired.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow. And you start realizing when you share just yourself what is the truth, that makes other people more comfortable too.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask about that, actually. I forgot.
Yeah.
You said, like, now with the pregnancy, like, if you sit down for a long time, then your back starts hurting. How has it been otherwise with the scoliosis, this pregnancy?
The honest truth is I don't know how it is to have a normal back. No. So I don't have anything to compare to. But I don't think it impacts it that much, because my sisters also have it. The only thing I've heard is you get shorter after you have a baby because you become more compressed.
Yeah.
But I think that might be true even if your back is fully straight, I think.
But what about now for birth? Could there be any issues giving birth with scoliosis?
I don't think so. Because once you stop growing, your spine like remains the way it is. And it's more of like an S-shaped form. But I don't think the only thing I thought about was if I get an epidural, that they really need to know what my back looks like. Because so you don't insert a needle like in the wrong area, because I look different. But I think they would know that, I hope.
Yeah, you wouldn't be the first, you would think.
No. And it's actually quite common. It actually impacts women almost only, scoliosis, and I don't know why, but it's almost everyone has like a tiny degree of...
Can I ask one last question, going back to what we talked about before? So with this baby showing up, what has your family's reaction been?
We had a call. I think I had one with my parents, and then he wanted to talk to my siblings and have the call at the end of last year. But, we explained like the whole story. I think their initial response was more how I felt, actually, like a little bit like that. And then they were still saying, you know, that they love him and like it doesn't change anything really like that. So they had a very kind and sweet approach. But of course, they were, I think, mostly concerned that, like, was there any part of like tricking me, like he knew but didn't tell me, because that would maybe impact a relationship a lot. So that was the only concern, I think, that they had. And we talked and shared everything, how we had reflected on everything as well. Yeah, so I think it was a nice reaction to have, even after you could tell he was so nervous to have the conversation. And I mean, anyone can imagine. You're like, okay, well, part of the show was because I think I told one sister, like, during the filming, I was like, yeah, people are bringing up this rumor that he has a kid. And she's like, oh, and I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, we just brushed it and moved forward. So it was not even that serious during the filming time. And then now I was like, well, you guys remember what we had shared? It was only one of them you knew, I think. So that was a little, I mean, it's a tough conversation for anyone to have. But yeah, I think it was met well. But we'll see like how things go in the future as well. And I think everyone in my family, because I told when I was dating, even on different dates there, I shared that I want like 2 or 3 kids and maybe I want to adopt or have a foster child or something in the future, like very open to loving kids and doesn't have to be biological. And I have a sister as adopted kids as well. So for me, I had that like mindset about kids as well, that it's, and I come from a home where we haven't had foster care, but we have had people maybe stay for a few months when they're going through stuff. So I've always viewed our home like very open and welcoming. So I think for me it was having had that thought prior really helped me. But it is a different thing to think that someone has a kid with what is your husband.
Yeah.
Even if someone met him before. But if you think about it in the big picture, it's a lot of situations that are like that. It's easy sometimes to talk about it, but I know my own thoughts and process has not always been so simple in thinking about it. Even though like coming back to like, you know, always having a loving, open arms. It's grown-ups that made a decision and not the child's fault. Yeah. And then you have to have love for the child. So I think keeping that thought simple helps.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
Yeah.
This was great. Interesting to hear. Thank you so much for sharing everything. And good luck with the birth and congratulations to finding love.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for listening, and please let me know what you thought. You can find my email and Instagram in the description of this episode. I am definitely open to doing more interviews in English, so if you have any ideas about who I should interview, please reach out and I will see what I can do. As usual, I'm doing this podcast all by myself, so if you would like to hear more, please share it with your friends so that more people can find it. Now, as we say in Swedish, tack och hej, leverpastej, thank you and goodbye, liverpastej.